Hey guys, what's up? Today I'm gonna show you the hardest turn-based JRPGs that I've ever played. I know there's a lot of really hard RPGs out there, especially when it comes to turn-based RPGs, but keep in mind that maybe I haven't played them or that I barely play them, like the ones on the NES for example. So these are the hardest turn-based JRPGs that I've ever played. Alright, let's begin! Number 10. Digital Devil Saga. Yeah, well, of course a Shin Megami Tensei game will be here, so there's 2 volumes, a game cut into 2 parts, right? I never made it past the first one, and I've actually heard the second is even harder. I got really far into part 1, but just got really burned out from all the grinding. Most SMT games are dungeon crawlers with several annoying puzzles and random encounters. The difficulty in Digital Devil Saga comes not only from that, but also from the classic elemental strengths and weaknesses. It's all about using the right magic fusions for your characters, as you can't have personas or demons fighting by your side like in the other Shin Megami Tensei games. You're stuck with only 3 party members that have their own unique element, so you can't just rely on demon fusion until you get the right creature here. No! There's also a very cryptic skill called the Mantra Grid. To unlock certain abilities, you need to pay money and then use Atma points that you acquire by defeating enemies. These resources are very limited, which also takes part in the huge grinding involved. Along with a variety of really annoying status effects, characters can also be killed off easily if the enemy takes advantage of the press turn system. I could go on, but I think the series' reputation precedes it, so you already know these games are tough as nails. Number 9. Octopath Traveler. Inspired by the Saga series, known for being freaking brutal games, Octopath Traveler has already become one of the hardest RPGs of this generation. Like most RPGs you'll see in today's video, it's another huge grind fest, but you already knew that. However, just like in most of them, you get capped so easily it takes forever to gain one single level. All enemies have several weaknesses and you need to exploit them by trying different attacks first. Some enemies can be pretty nasty even when you're over leveled thanks to this, but the bosses are what castrate people the most. All of them have insane amounts of HP, often change weaknesses, and have extremely nasty area of effect attacks. Within 2 turns, sometimes they can wipe out your entire party. So you depend on using NPCs to help you in battle, a job system that's long and hard to master, switching to the appropriate job for that specific boss, and rely on patience until it goes down. This is a really hard RPG and I've explained why in more detail several times in the past, so let's just move on. Number 8. Valkyrie Profile 2 Silmeria. Another one I've over-explained before is Silmeria, and you also already know it's my favorite PS2 RPG of all time. I got so good at this hardcore son of a gun that I made it my bitch. But it's so challenging and complex, it took me a long time to master it. It's this battle system that's weird, but in the good sense of the word. I love it. It mixes turns, strategy, and action. You can freely move around the battlefield, but there's camera and control issues on purpose to make you enter the enemy's attack range. If you can find a way to avoid them and go straight for the leader, you'll finish the battle, and your several grinding sessions in no time. Yes, you get more crystals and money and experience if you kill them all, but that takes forever in my opinion. Some areas are extremely hard to navigate through, so reaching the leader can sometimes be a pain in the ass. Bosses are freaking brutal, also with tons of HP like in Octopath Traveler. Bringing them down is a matter of abusing the Soul Crush system when available, having your characters with the best equipment possible, and of course, being on a decent level. However, the economy system here is horrible. Equipment can be so expensive most of the time, and don't get me started on the skill tree system, which relies mainly on accessories and colors. It took me forever to understand it, so it will take me forever to explain it. Brutally hard game for being brutally convoluted, but but also brutally rewarding in my opinion. Number 7. Saga Frontier 2. I hate the first game and never even made it to the first boss on any character, so I don't really have enough experience to explain its difficulty. But it's also really hard, that's all I know. The second game is no joke either. This time there's only 2 characters to choose from and both can be cryptic as hell. One of them, Gustav, is less cryptic and his route is less hard, so I strongly advise you start with him on your first playthrough. I never, and I mean it, never knew what the hell was I supposed to do on Will's route. A boss handed my ass back to me so easily that I rage quit and started with Gustav. This game has 3 battle systems, and what makes it so hard is that there are a small variation of its regular turn-based combat. No matter your equipment or status, enemies and especially bosses will always feel more powerful than you. So you need to master those freaking skills and use the right ones for every situation. Of course, knowing what the right ones are is a pain in the butt. You don't level up here, you randomly gain status, so imagine you're grinding. Why make a game so stupidly hard and then rely on an unfair RNG system to get stronger? I don't want to talk about the equipment and accessory system, no, please, no! This game is good, but half of its gameplay mechanics are just horrible. Number 6. Breath of Fire 2. I used to hate this game, but then I gave it a second chance and changed my mind. I think it's a great RPG nowadays. However, it's also complete and utter bullshit. It's infamous for having one of the worst encounter rates in history. That's right, it's really high. Sometimes you only take one step and you get into a battle again. Your weak-ass characters will always take way more damage than your tank characters, and even them with a few hits can easily die sometimes. Now, the difficulty in this game can come from many different gameplay mechanics. Every now and then a boss will kick your sorry ass and you'll have to grind. Gaining one single level takes forever cause the experience is shared among the party, that's right. Economy system is more broken than in Valkyrie 2. You're a poor bastard the entire game unless you exploit the fishing or the hunting minigames. So having the right equipment will also force you to grind. Backtracking is preposterous. You'll be doing that a hell of a lot between towns and areas for no goddamn reason. And sometimes you need to have the right character in your party to pass over certain areas. That's so annoying because there are characters I just don't want to use. They're somewhat useless in battle. Screw this game, man. Music, graphics, pixel art, battle system and story are alright, but the rest was just created to seriously piss the player off. Number 5. Phantasy Star 2. This one shares many similarities with Breath of Fire 2, like the economy system for example, or the grinding or the encounter rate, etc. Many RPGs of this time are like this, but I found these two to be among the most annoying. Phantasy Star 2 is a game where you'll have to grind sometimes even to be able to stand a chance on the next area. Forget about the bosses, some random enemies will be your worst nightmare. And just like in Breath of Fire 2, you can't see the turn order, so planning your strategies is often useless. But the one thing that can make this classic RPG drive you completely nuts is the dungeon design. You don't have a map and the entire layout looks exactly the same no matter where you go. You'll be hitting dead ends quite frequently and will have to backtrack. Yeah, random encounters in between. I don't think anything other than patience is required to beat this tough guy. But it's so unnerving getting lost in these labyrinthous places with no save points anywhere, so imagine dying with the boss only to go back at the beginning. And same thing with Breath of Fire 2. Thank goodness for save states and emulation nowadays. Number 4. Resonance of Fate. Good, bad, that's not the point. But all folks can agree its learning curve is atrociously high. Spending time with 20 different tutorials doesn't really help much, as even those can be so hard to comprehend. Battles in this game come across a format that doesn't exist anywhere else. Your 3 characters have guns and can do a variety of moves and combos just to look cool, because once you select their actions, their directions, and their type of gun, they'll execute these crazy acrobatics that are just for show. Notice when I said select their actions, directions, and guns? Sounds easy, right? That's because it should be that easy, goddammit! But it's the total opposite. Most of the time I didn't even know what I was doing because it's so convoluted and hard to understand. I've never been a fan anyway of gun shenanigans in video games, so I never really got into it. I have attempted to explain this game before, but failed miserably to do so. Plus, it's been a long time since I last played it that I purposely forgot what little I understood of it, so I don't want to talk about it anymore. Number 3, Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. Also known as Breath of Fire 5, this is yet another overly complicated and excruciatingly hard RPG. It plays like a roguelike RPG but in a very, very horrendous way. Here sometimes you'll need to restart the whole game, that's right, not a boss or a mission or a chapter, the whole game to get better status at the beginning. Without that, you'll just have to put up with its bullshit difficulty for so long. There's little to no point explaining the equipment system or the grinding even, because the whole game is ruined by penalties like this. Ryu can transform into a dragon like in all Breath of Fire games, except here, the more you transform, the closer you get to certain death. But the game's so hard, it kinda makes you wanna rely on this power. But if it's so damn harmful, why use it in the first place? Remember the old Resident Evil games? Well, to save your hard-ass adventure, you'll get a limited amount of tokens throughout the game. Obviously, this is to make things impossible for the player and kind of force them to restart the whole game like I mentioned before. You know, this isn't a terrible game, it just has some awful gameplay mechanics that I absolutely hated. Number 2, the Seventh Saga. The biggest grindfest of all time is this Super Nintendo RPG, and it was all thanks to an error in localization, which made it way harder than the original Japanese release. Enemy status were seriously boosted for no reason. No matter which character you select at the beginning, you'll face the exact same problems with the game. Enemies that can kill you in a couple of hits, bosses that can one-shot you, lack of resources and money, encounters that are so hard to avoid, etc. Your navigation in maps or dungeons will be beyond painful because of these encounters, so grinding over and over before each area is strongly advised. When I say over and over, I mean it, because thanks to the localization error, even being on the right level with the right equipment might get you killed. So you need to be over leveled before proceeding anywhere in this game. Seriously, the grinding here is more exhausting than any Disgaea game, and that's this RPG's only problem, because other than that, its mechanics and pacing are just fine, just like any other RPG from its era. It's absurd, but that little error made this game one of the hardest JRPGs of all time. Number 1. Original PS2 version is very hard. I don't know about the remaster. It has the most legendary difficulty spike in the history of RPGs, Matador, one of the most unfair and cheap bosses ever created. There are ways around him with lots of buffing and debuffing, of course having the right demons and being on the right level. Grind a lot here and read some guides on Demon Fusion to get the good ones, because if you miraculously beat this dude, it only gets even harder. He's just there to give you the bad news that the rest of the game will be exactly like this. That's not even counting several dungeons that are carefully designed to drive you insane. Encounter rate is normal here, but traversing some of these places is agonizing. It's not like battles are short and easy, which makes half of them as throbbing as the dungeons themselves. This cryptic nature of the game is what's so frustrating. It's even there on Demon Fusion as you have very little options at the beginning and it's so hard to know which demons are better, let alone getting them in the first place. Don't let the difficulty turn you off. This is an excellent RPG, There's a reason why it's so hard though. It has a lot to do with the game's story and its overall concept. I'll leave a video in the description and at the end of this one for you to watch and understand why. Alright guys, those were my picks for today's video. I'm pretty sure there's gotta be a lot of hard, really hard turn-based RPGs that are harder than the ones that I show in today's video. But you know, I barely play them or I never play them, right? And don't forget that if you think that some of these games that I showed today aren't really that hard, well, no one cares, man. No one cares. Maybe, you know, go tell your parents. Maybe they'll be proud of you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!